Yeah, so lovely to see you again. Thank you for joining us on this last day of this week-long masterclass, meditation masterclass, the unfolding mystery, the unfolding mystery. Yes, I've really enjoyed being with you all this week, and I hope you've benefited from this invitation to come closer to our direct experience, and you could say the unfolding mystery of consciousness, the unfolding mystery of moving from very tight, contracted states to something more open and seeing what arises. So the impermanence has been the main angle I've come into this idea that everything's changing all the time, everything, the world, ourselves, our minds, the observer that we may feel inside us, even that is flow. And so the journey is to learn to rest more and more deeply in flow and also openness. So flow, I suppose, is a little bit more of a temporal metaphor, and spaciousness is a bit more of or boundlessness is a more spatial metaphor. But the felt experience is of gradually unwinding all the kind of tightening that we so automatically do around experience to rest in something bigger. And there's a beautiful quote from William Blake, and he says, if the doors of perception were cleansed, then we'd see things as they really are, infinite. If the doors of perception were cleansed, then we'd see things as they really are, infinite. I find that very, very beautiful. Yeah, so in a way, what we've been doing this week is cleansing the doors of perception so that we can open out to something bigger, broader, vaster, more loving. And we've done that through the body. On the first day, we did it through breath. On the second day, 360-degree breathing, this kind of rhythm in the body that we can experience through the breath. We looked at thoughts and emotions on Wednesday, and I gave you some methods for how to work with the entanglement of the mind, where it can feel so knotted up sometimes. Coming back to the body, our sense experience as our foundation. And then if that doesn't work, becoming a mind whisperer and breathing with whatever's going on, with this kindly, gentle, not bullying the mind, but learning to work with the mind, being patient and kindly with the mind, with our individual mind. Then yesterday we released that even further into realizing our fundamental connectedness, our fundamental interconnectedness. If we're all this kind of flow of experience, then it's ultimately not hard yet. If we're all a flow of experience, and ultimately there's not hard edges between us. And I gave you those two images of the little clay figures that were so solid and rigid and separate, suggesting that that's often how we perceive the world. And then the two bodies of water that were different, but if you tried to find a rigid line between them, you'd never find that. And I think that's maybe a little bit what it's actually like, metaphorically speaking. So another way of looking at this is self-awareness, where we're learning to work more creatively with our actual experience moment by moment, learning to get to know our habits, get to know our minds, get to know our bodies, our emotions, and so on. Just continually investigating what's actually happening right now and how can I bring a more creative response to that. We could metaphorically say that's like looking in a mirror. So we're looking into our experience and we're getting a sense of what's actually going on, a little bit like looking in a mirror. And in a mirror, you see things without distortion, don't you? The mirror just reflects back what's actually there. And of course, we impose our interpretations and our distortions. I'm looking tired today, or I wish I had different hair, or whatever it might be, all the things that we do, but that's the mind imposing. But the mirror itself just reflects us back. So that's what we're doing with self-awareness. And then imagine that the mirror is on a wall, and now the mirror becomes a window. So you sort of can open the pull the mirror back, and there's a window. So the mirror becomes a window. You look out, and there's 7 billion people just like me out there. So I really love that metaphor of the mirror becoming the window. And that's what we were doing yesterday. We were looking out and realizing, oh my goodness, all of you, you're just like me. You're not objects, you're not other. You are just like me. And my Buddhist teacher, Sangharakshita, he talks about how we're all coagulations in the common stream of life, which I find very, very helpful. And I've reflected on this a lot over the years, because in some ways it's not hugely aesthetic that we're coagulations, but I think it's a very accurate word. And sometimes that can just be like a little current in the river, very kind of fluid, easy, connected. And sometimes, of course, things can coagulate and become completely hard and crusty, can't it? I mean, if you think about milk coagulating or blood coagulating, it's the same. It's got the same structure, molecular structure and so on, whether it's fluid or whether it's completely sort of clotted and hard and scabby. And I think it's really, really great metaphor, even though it's not very aesthetic. So we're our own little coagulation, our own little condensation within the common stream of life. I find that very beautiful. And then what happens is that empathy naturally arises when you realize that this other out there is just like oneself, and everything that I experience, or you as individuals experience, others experience exactly the same processes in their own way. Yeah, the stories are unique, the circumstances are unique, but the basic experience is ultimately completely the same. We've all got bodies, we're all breathing, we've all got tendencies, we've all got habits. We all tend to push away things we don't like, and we all tend to pull in things that we don't like. And we all tend to get very confused when we don't know whether we like things or not. And in the Buddhist tradition, this is called greed, hatred, and delusion. So we're all prone to greed, hatred, and delusion. And very, very importantly, we've all got equal potential for releasing those contracted states into the ocean of the mind, or the clear blue sky of the mind, this big mind. So we've got kind of our individual contracted mind, which is where we're usually located. We're not even aware of anything bigger, but it seems very clear from the wisdom traditions and the records of people who have awoken from the stream of this is everything. They've awoken to realize, oh gosh, there's also, the mind is capable of releasing and relaxing into something vast and boundless. And we've all got that potential equally. We all have that equal potential. So that's another ground for empathy. Yeah, we can all get tight and contracted, and we can all release into openness. And yesterday we explored love, kindness, these kind of things, and the suggestion that they are in there and they are natural to us. And we had that lovely little conversation, I think it was with Kim, where she wasn't sure whether it was true that kindness was natural, love was natural. And then she brought to mind, I think it was her niece or her nephew, and it was like, oh yes, here it is. It is natural. So we had this discussion about love being quite a big word, and we can think, we should feel ecstasy or feel this boundless love for all beings. And of course we don't. So then we think, well, I haven't got any love. And then we chunked it right down to simple human kindness, simple kindness. And we all know what kindness is like. We all know what it's like to feel kindness. We all know what it's like to receive kindness. And it might be that, one of your strongest experiences of that was with an animal as well, your pet. Sometimes pets are very easy to love, and they give such unconditional love back. So that's also the same quality. And there's a lovely couple of quotes from great Buddhist masters, great Tibetan masters who lived many years ago. So there's Patrul Rinpoche, who was this really wild wanderer in the mountains. And I think he did have a completely free mind, reading about him. There's a wonderful book called Enlightened Vagabond. So, he was pretty tough. He could, wander around in a robe in the Himalayas year after year, exploring his mind. But what he says, and I find this very beautiful, he says, have a good heart and act with kindness. There is no higher teaching. Have a good heart and act with kindness. There is no higher teaching. So I find that very, very wonderful, because I think sometimes in our culture we can think kindness and compassion are a bit soft, a bit wishy-washy. But here's this tremendously strong, tough, great master saying there is no higher teaching than kindness. And then there's another Tibetan teacher called Dado Rinpoche, who's one of the teachers of my teacher. And someone asked him once, well, how do I know if my practice is effective? Which is a great question, because how do we sort of evaluate or assess this meditation business, or trying to be more aware and kind in our daily life? So they said, well, how do I know? And he said, because you'll become a little kinder every day. Because you'll become a little kinder every day. So again, I find that very helpful, very beautiful. It's not metaphysical. It's very simple, very experiential. That will just become a little kinder. So have a good heart and act with kindness. Maybe that's something to take away from this week. So the other thing that I'd really like you to take away is this word mystery. So the title of this week's session is this unfolding mystery. And, we've had a lot of words about what it might be like to open the mind, open the heart. But I think it is profoundly mysterious. And it seems, and again, in the great wisdom traditions and in Buddhism, people don't try to pin it down and bolt it down. So all the concepts that we have about it, they are pointing us in the direction of travel, but they are not the thing. So we had Bernardo's great metaphor of the dashboard in the plane, that you're flying along in a plane and haven't got any windows, and you've got the dashboard that's telling you what's going on in your plane, why it's staying on course and so on. And then, of course, outside the plane, you've got the clear blue sky. And what we do is we mistake that whole experience of the sky for the dashboard, or we mistake the dashboard for the sky. And we think the dashboard is everything. And he's saying with these explorations, we can, at the very least, get some windows into the plane and look out and see the clear blue sky. But maybe eventually even the plane somehow mysteriously becomes the sky, and the sky becomes the plane in some very mysterious way. So I think mystery is very beautiful as a quality to really cherish. And if you think you've really understood things, you probably haven't. And if you know you haven't understood things, that's good. That means you've got this open mind, and to keep being surprised by the unfolding, keep being surprised by the mystery. So I think awe is also a really lovely word, A-W-E, awe. I like being awed by life, and it can happen in very simple ways. Yesterday I went outside, I think it was after the session, and there was a seagull. I mean, you'd think seagull, that's a boring bird. The seagull was calling, and it stopped me in my tracks. There was something about it. It's like, oh, yes. The call of that bird was some kind of call of the mystery. And the fact that I noticed it, and that I stopped, and that I attended, it opened my heart. It opened me up to this great mystery of this living, kind of seething world that we are living within. I mean, it's so remarkable, isn't it, that we are alive in this astonishing world of vibrancy, of vitality, of color, of life forms. It's just absolutely amazing when you think about it. And I've just finished a book by Robert Macfarlane called Underland. He's a wonderful nature writer. He's written quite a number of books. And in this book, he's exploring what's underneath the surface of the earth. It's really, really wonderful. He's a great explorer as well. So he does crazy things like abseiling down inside a glacier in Norway inside a kind of sinkhole. But he also meets a guy who works with trees, and apparently there's this whole field of study now, the way trees are totally interconnected under the surface, and they're kind of communicating with each other, not in the way that we would, not with sort of self-reflexive consciousness. Perhaps they might, I don't know, but there's definitely huge amounts of communication going on, and they've called this the Wood Wide Web. The Wood Wide Web, which is brilliant. So just like we've got the World Wide Web that we all are familiar with, this kind of magic where I'm sitting here, Roland's over there in Cairns, and somehow or other we're in the same room. I mean, that is astonishing. But trees have got something like that going on under the surface. And they also release chemicals that get carried on the wind. So if there's a blight coming, there's chemicals released, and then other trees that are downwind, they will release chemicals to defend themselves from the blight. It's incredible. So just opening up to the fact that it's not just me and you that are remarkable and amazing and fluid and connected, but we are also connected with this great world all around us. And it's a wonderful thing to be awed by that. We should be awed by that because it is astonishing. So maybe even a word sacred is quite good, that this world is sacred, this life is sacred. It's completely sort of unknowable with the rational mind, but we are participants in something astonishing, wonderful, sacred, beautiful, awesome. So I'd love you to take that from this week as well. I'd love you all to go outside at one point today and look up at the sky and be awed, or to hear the cry of a seagull, something we might normally think is quite boring, something ordinary, and be awed by it. Look at, if you're living in the UK, look at a daffodil or look at a tulip and think, wow, that is really amazing. And that opens the heart, that opens us up. We move from using the world in a utilitarian way or relating to the world in a utilitarian way, and we relate to the world in a sacred way. And that's very beautiful. So I'm just going to say a little bit about the imagination and then we'll move into a practice. In the first week that Maitreya Bandhu led, the first week of these meditations, he talked about the imagination quite a lot. So I'd really recommend you go back and listen to those because it's very, very good. He's a poet himself. So his inner world, his imaginal life is obviously very rich. But I think imagination is something we can really play with, we can really enjoy, we can harness in our meditation practice. Imagination is an extraordinary human faculty that we have this ability to imagine. So I'm using all these words and I'm evoking some imagery, and in your minds that will be stimulating something. It might not be visual. Imagination doesn't only work through the visual, but it might just be, oh yes, a daffodil, a tulip, the sky. That's triggering something in you. Those are just words coming out of my mouth, but they're messengers for something that will be triggering your own imaginal faculty. So we all have it. We can all imagine. And of course, we can imagine bad things, but we can also harness our imagination to enable this journey of softening and opening and releasing into something bigger, to become more rich and alive. So just see what emerges in the practice. See what emerges. So when we're doing the breathing, for example, because we'll do a practice similar to yesterday, but when we're doing the breathing, you may get a sense of waves on a beach. The wave flows up the beach, flows down the beach, flows up the beach, flows down the beach. It's got this rhythm, just like breathing. We've got the great tides, just like breathing. So something might come to you like that. I'm only giving you that as an example, so that if something like that does arise for you, you can notice that. You can rest with that. And I think the main way to distinguish imagination from fantasy is whether it's embodied or not. I think fantasy takes us away from our direct experience, and imagination helps us come closer. So for example, if you say that wave imagery works for you, and then you find yourself imagine that you're on a beach, and then you start thinking about, wow, I wish I was on a beach. I must book my holiday to Greece. Oh no, I'm meditating. Oh, but maybe I'll stop now and go off and book my holiday. Oh, here I am in Greece. It's all lovely. Well, that you're just in a fantasy. But if you could imagine yourself on the beach, and then you're feeling this rhythm in your body, then that will be something that's helping you in your practice rather than taking you away from your practice. When we're doing the breathing as well, quite a nice imaginal kind of metaphor there is to imagine a breeze on a summer's day. A breeze on a summer's day that's warmed by the sun. And you're just out there and you're feeling this breeze flowing in and out of your body. And you can imagine that your breath is warmed by your intention of kindliness towards yourself. So with this breathing, it's like a breeze that's just breathing kindness into your experience on the in-breath and the out-breath. Oh, look, I've got the light coming again. I quite like that, but it's a bit blinding. I'll pull my blind down in a moment. And something I have in my own practice that's very alive for me is a cave. So I have this, what I call the cave of the heart. And I'm going into my, in my practice, I'm dropping deeper. I'm not going up and out, but I'm dropping deeper in. And then quite often there's a cave that I find myself in. And it's different every day. So this is another important thing about the imagination. We just allow whatever's arising to arise without trying to recreate what happened in a previous meditation. But I know the cave's there. It's different every day. Sometimes it's really, really big and bright. Sometimes it's quite sort of small, and it's not dark exactly, but it's more unknown. I can't see into all the corners. But very often in the cave, there are beings there who are full of love. There are beings there who are full of love. Now, I have no idea what that is rationally. I could tell you lots of stories about what that is using Buddhist iconography and so on. But I think I just like to stay with the mystery. There are beings there who are full of love. And if I've got a lot of pain going on, I get a lot of physical pain with my spinal injury, or it might be mental pain, it might be more emotional tightness. I go there and these beings just love me. And I just rest in this cave. And I allow in this kindness, this tenderness, this love. And then my heart starts to open and I start to feel more connected, more at ease. So I'm just telling you that as an example of something like that arises in your practice, then allow it to arise and see it as a support. I find my cave incredibly supportive. Yeah. So when we're in the practice, just be open to whatever arises. And if you've never done this before in this way, it might seem busy. If it all gets a bit busy and confusing, just coming back to the body, the breath, the moment. Okay, so let's get ourselves set up. I'm just going to pull my blind down again. It seems a bit devastating to shut out the light, but there we are. You can't see me otherwise. I'm going to, just mute for a minute. Nick, if you can unmute after. Good. Okay. So as always, just really taking time to make sure that you're in a position that's going to be supportive. Closing the eyes if that's comfortable, or else lowering your gaze. And beginning to arrive a little more deeply into the body. Feeling the contact between your buttocks and the chair or the stool or the cushions, your feet and the floor, your legs and the floor, depending on your posture. If you want to, you could take a deeper in-breath, and on the out-breath, let the out-breath go all the way out and release. Let the in-breath flow back in its own time. And when you're ready, allowing your breathing to find its own natural rhythm. Let's remember this great message from Patrul Rinpoche. Have a good heart and act with kindness. There is no higher teaching. Let's see if we can bring that invitation into our practice and bring that attitude towards ourselves, whatever arises in the practice. Let's see if we can meet that with simple human kindness. So having a sense of awareness pouring out of the head, filling the body, and in particular the feet and the legs and the hips first of all, the buttocks first of all, this whole lower part of the body. Seeing if we can rest inside rather than thinking about an abstraction of the legs, the buttocks. Let's be inside. Temperature, sensation, contact, weight. And let the buttocks be soft, yield into the support. If you've got discomfort, seeing if you can meet that with kindness. Noticing any impulse to harden, contract, resist. Seeing if we can allow this experience we label discomfort to become a flow of sensations flowing through the moments. Now allowing awareness to fill the whole torso, the front and the back and the sides, the inside and the surface. Seeing if we can allow breathing to show up in the whole torso, 360-degree breathing. The volume opening in all directions on the in-breath, subsiding in all directions on the out-breath. No need to force or strain. Opening, vitalizing phase on the in-breath, and this releasing, letting go, yielding back into the support phase with each out-breath. Your breathing feels agitated, dropping awareness lower and deeper in the body and into the back of the body. Including the shoulders, the arms and the hands, allowing awareness to pour inside and through the shoulders all the way down to the tips of the fingers and the thumbs. Having the hands supported so the shoulders can fall away from the midline of the body. Now coming to the neck and the head, allowing awareness to fill this area as well. So we've got the whole body filled with awareness, and now it's including the neck and the head. Maybe releasing a little bit through the base of the skull, and yet openness in the throat, front of the neck. Face soft, the eyes soft, lips, tongue and jaw soft. And if your brain feels full of thoughts, like it's a hard rock, perhaps you could even imagine your brain resting inside the head. Resting, softening. Seeing if we can experience the head as a limb of the body. Feeling into the physicality of the head. So now let's spend some time broadening awareness to rest inside this whole process of embodying this verb, this flow of experience that we label body. So we'll move into a few minutes of unguided practice where you can rest inside the whole body, rest inside breathing, noticing the arising of contraction, resistance to certain experience. In the noticing, we can release a little bit, resting inside breathing in the whole body, bringing kindness to our experience, and seeing what arises with the imagination, just being playful, curious, resting. what's happening now. If you're completely lost, then in the noticing, you're present, you're aware, and you can choose to regroup, as it were, come back to the simple, basic experience of body awareness, sensations, breathing. This basic experience before we start layering on layers and layers and layers of interpretation, views, judgments, and so on. And allowing your imagination to speak to you, as it were, to support you. And how is kindness showing up towards whatever's arising, mentally, emotionally, physically? It doesn't have to be big and grand. It might be tiny little moments of care or tenderness that you notice you've got towards yourself. This remarkable experience of being alive. If you notice that, then just attending to those feelings, resting there, allowing them to stabilize and to build, to grow. Now staying grounded, centered in ourselves, let's open the circumference of our awareness. It gets bigger to include everybody here in this gathering, this session. There's 99 of us now from many different places. So we're not going away from ourselves, but it's more that we're expanding ourselves. We're opening ourselves to include all these other remarkable people, remarkable humans. Not others as such, but fellow travelers in this great mystery of life. And again, we can allow our imagination to participate. Maybe we get images of people. Maybe it's a feeling. Excuse me. Maybe we imagine we're in a great field of love and kindness together somewhere, but we're still staying embodied. So again, there'll be an unguided period now for a few moments where you can really play with this in your experience. Opening your heart to include everybody here. Again, just checking in on what's happening now. If you're completely lost, tight, contracted, confused, in the noticing, you're aware you're succeeding in your practice and you can choose to regroup. Come inside the body, soften the buttocks, soften the jaw, rest inside whole body breathing. Allow the sensations to flow in the whole body. Looking for kindliness, again, no matter how subtle, delicate it might be. Then opening out to everybody here. And then when we're ready, or if you want to, you can expand your field of awareness still more, staying centered and grounded, but opening a field of awareness, a field of interest, curiosity, to include all the other human beings alive right now, about 7 billion of us, and all the other creatures. This great mass of life, of mystery, of beauty, of awe, right now. We can bring to mind people in war zones. Of course, that's not so beautiful. Tremendous suffering, but also tremendous courage and kindness that we hear about. People who are awake, people who are asleep, people who are rich, people who are poor. Deep down, we're all so very, very alike. These condensations of the common stream of life, coagulations, currents, little whirlpools. Let's just breathe together with everyone, the whole world breathing, this rhythm, this flow, and letting it be a kindly breath. If it works for you, you can imagine kindness just pouring out into the whole world with each out-breath. Opening to life on the in-breath, kindness on the out-breath. And allowing your imagination to join in if you want to. Playing, being receptive to what's arising. Again, if it all gets a bit too much at any point, then backing off, really bringing the body to the foreground of awareness, allowing the body to feel awareness and particular stability in the body. Softening the buttocks and the jaw. If you're feeling a bit numb or cut off, disinterested, perhaps you could choose one or two individuals and connect with them in your imagination. Empathy, interest, care, kindness. See what arises. Now allowing this awareness of others to stay there, but to drop a little bit into the background and bringing self-awareness back to the foreground of our awareness, being aware of the whole body. How's the body feeling? If there's tension that's built up through the practice, allowing our awareness to include that, going there, softening, releasing, yielding, being kindly. But don't over focus on it, like the octopus I talked about yesterday. Let it be part of awareness. Checking that we're still yielding the weight of the body up to the support, soft buttocks, soft jaw, soft face, soft body. The hands are soft. Being aware of our thoughts and emotions, whatever's flowing through the mind and the heart, let it be there. Greeting it with kindliness. And now letting go of any effort whatsoever. And just sitting, absorbing the effect of the practice. Now introducing a tiny bit of movement, maybe the fingers, toes, hands, feet. Noticing any tendency to immediately start gripping and resisting and closing down. Seeing if we can keep the breathing soft, flowing, the movement flowing. Coming into bigger movements. And then when we're ready, beginning to come out of the practice, opening the eyes, if we've had them closed. Coming into a stretch if you want to. Asking yourself what's your body calling for, and if you can give it, then doing so. Yeah, so just very gently transitioning out of the meditation. So I'm just going to stand up. So just mute myself, Nick, and then if you can unmute me. Good. Good. So I'm aware that some of you will need to leave now. Our European friends perhaps have to go to work, sadly. I shouldn't say sadly, maybe you love your work. So if anyone needs to leave, just to express my gratitude to you for coming. It's been really wonderful sharing these days with you. And I hope you can take a lot of the approaches that I've introduced this week into your life, not just your meditation, but perhaps even more importantly, your life. You might meditate for an hour a day or half an hour a day, but there's a lot of other hours where it's very good if we can take these qualities of awareness and kindness for our own sake and for the sake of the world. And I'll just mention one more time, if you haven't given money already, haven't made a donation already, it would be really wonderful if you would consider offering a little something, because we do need the money to keep the project going. Yeah. And I think the suggestion is £50 if you can manage that. Okay. So we can do what we've done the last couple of days of having questions if there are any. Otherwise we can explore it through if you just share anything, and we can explore that through a conversation or through dialogue if you want to. Any questions, Nick? I can see the chat, but it's sorry.
Yeah, Greg says, do you think there's a danger focusing too much on the imagination, where someone attempts to force or look for an imaginative response? For me, I know that I have to bear this in mind.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Nick, that it can become a bit what's sometimes called willful, where we're trying to sort of pump something out or trying to generate something or trying to force something to happen. And I think the imagination is maybe we need to have the mind whisperer approach to the imagination. It's quite a sort of delicate experience sometimes. We can't bully the imagination, put it that way. We can't force it. And it's a very, very deep listening, very, very deeply receptive quality that allows the imagination to come out and play. Let's put it that way. Yeah, so it's more waiting. I think that we need to have a waiting attitude to the imagination. Just wait and see if anything arises. And sometimes it doesn't, and that's also completely fine. So I wouldn't want you to think you should be having, wonderful imaginative experiences. Some people do, some people don't. But it was more, I just wanted it to be an option that we included this week. So, because sometimes people do have a lot of imaginative stuff going on, and then they shut it down in their practice, thinking, I'm supposed to be present and mindful, and now I've got this amazing cave thing happening, for example. And I think that's a shame if you shut that down, because often there's great sort of openings within these imaginal experiences that we have. Yeah, and for example, very often when in my early days of meditation, I thought it was all about energy going sort of up, being bright and alert, which it is, of course. But then, listening to the imagination in my practice, it became much more about falling. So interesting that sometimes what I need to do in my practice is allow myself to go so far inside that it's like I'm falling through the earth, and then spaciousness and blue sky and luminosity seems to lie underneath, and I need to allow myself to fall. I'm not suggesting any of you do this, by the way. I'm just including what worked for me, because I think I've got a lot of tension because I've got this uncomfortable body. There can be quite a lot of tension in my body just through trying to stay upright, to allowing myself to rest and settle. And then it was like, wow, and now I'm falling, and wow, now down here there's all this beauty and wonder and light. If I'd stayed with a sort of fixed idea of what should be happening, I'd still be in this rather rigid, upright, heady state. So that's just an example, yeah. But that was just a kind of deep listening and then allowing. Yeah, but I sort of feel slightly wary having said that, because I wouldn't want people to think they've got to fall through the earth. It's all very metaphorical, of course, but it's an example of letting go and releasing, settling, resting. But yeah, to go back to your question, we can try to force things, and that generally doesn't work. Yeah, I mean, the image I'm getting now as I'm talking to you is of a shy creature. You're in a room and there's a little cat or a very shy little creature in the corner, and you have to be there, know that it's there, be quiet and still. But if you try to force that creature to come out of the corner, it won't, will it? It will just back into the corner more. So I think the imagination can be a little bit like that. Good. Anything else?
So Alex is saying, thank you, it's been quite a transformative week. I found today that relaxing more sent me to sleep more. It felt a bit counterproductive, but it also felt less pressured. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I mean, that's something that came up the other day, and it is an interesting it's conundrum, maybe, that if we allow ourselves to be less tight, then of course sleep is something that may emerge. So there's two responses to that, I think. Sometimes we're just very tired. And I think Sona talked about having a micro nap. I think it was Sona in his sessions, or it might have been Maitreya Bandhu. Sometimes just to allow yourself to have a little short sleep is an option. Sometimes it's telling us, you're tired. I'm thinking it was Alex that had the little baby on lying on your chest at the beginning of the session, so you probably are quite tired. So it can tell you, how can I get a bit more rest if possible? If you've got a little baby, it might not be possible. Sometimes it's just a little phase that we go through. We're sort of softening and releasing, getting sleepy. And then, using our awareness, we notice that's happening. We can think, oh, maybe I just have a tiny little nap, and then alertness arises. Or you can think, oh, I'm getting sleepy. My energy is getting a bit too sluggish, a bit too slow, a bit too low. So then you use your awareness to choose to raise your energy higher in the body. You can even open your eyes. You can use your imagination again to imagine you're standing under a cold shower. That can be quite good. Just imagine you've been woken up by a cold shower. So again, that's using the imagination. You can stand up. Actually, that's something I sometimes recommend on retreats. If people are very sleepy, I say, well, just stand up in the practice, because there's further to fall. So you will stay awake. And I think that's fine. People just stand up for a few moments and their energy kind of clears and settles, and then they sit down again. Yeah. But it's a very delicate, subtle thing, this difference between calming and sort of releasing and opening and becoming sleepy. And it can become very interesting also to explore that edge. So that's another actually very good skill that you can bring as you notice you're sleepy. So what is this experience of sleepiness like? What am I feeling in my body? What's happening in my mind? How's my breathing? And that will probably wake you up a little bit, because you're bringing interest and engagement and curiosity to the experience of sleepiness. So that's another thing I really recommend. Okay, good. Anything else, Nick?
So no explicit questions, but there's lots of comments. So yeah, Gary's saying thank you. He's learned so many things that have enhanced his practice. And Amy saying thank you, saying that the practice has been immensely helpful and supportive. Vanessa's also saying thank you, very grateful to be able to be here. And Kedrick as well.
And I can see Alex has got 2 babies. I think, Alex, you're definitely allowed to have a little nap in your meditation. If that's what's emerging when you've got 2 babies. Yeah. Good. So does anyone want to share anything that they noticed in that practice? Anything you noticed? You could just raise your hand or unmute yourself, or you probably can't unmute yourself. But if you raise your hand using the reactions button at the bottom of the screen, then Nick will see who you are. And oh, Diana, brilliant. So do you want to tell us what you noticed, Diana?
Good morning, Vidyamala and everybody. Thank you so much for your teachings this week. I had a lot of distraction because yesterday one of my colleagues was going through a difficult situation, and for some reason I keep going back to the situation and what could I have done to help her better instead of just listening. And noticed contraction obviously in my stomach because I was thinking, what should I have done? But I had a question about at the end of the practice, when we just rest and we stop the effort, where like naturally the mind keeps still going and kind of doing the practice. Like I think I don't quite grasp like what not doing anything, because I feel like I still have to kind of direct my attention to the body to be able,
Yeah, fantastic. Great question. Yeah, so there's a practice called just sitting, which is a recognized meditation practice, just sitting, where in a way it's just allowing our awareness to, rather than consciously attending to the body or the breath or thoughts or emotions or kindness or self or others, which are all where we're giving the mind a kind of invitation to go in a particular direction. Just sitting is seen as important as a kind of assimilation opportunity. We can just let everything kind of settle into our being. And of course, as you're saying, the mind will probably still go to what it's interested in. I think I said this earlier on in the week, that the mind goes to what it's interested in. So if you've got this issue that from yesterday, that's quite present for you, the mind probably will still go there. And again, you just kind of notice that. But it's a very good question, actually. I'm just trying to think what I do and what's different. It's a very subtle difference. But rather than trying to introduce any methods, as it were, to work with that experience, it's like, oh, here it is again. Let me just acknowledge that, settle, rest, be with it. But without this kind of even subtle intention of, well, how can I work with it creatively? It's just like, oh, well, here it is again. Let me just have a couple of moments where I'm giving my mind a complete sort of rest from even trying to engage with this one way or the other. Let's just be here for a few moments. So I sometimes see it as, I think assimilation is a good word. I imagine like all the cells in my body are just kind of absorbing the experience a bit more. So it's going a bit deeper. But I think the point is it's quite demanding to keep on trying to engage creatively with our experience. Maybe you've experienced this over this week, even though the methods that I'm using are quite, it's this path of opening rather than getting into a tussle with our experience. Even that is quite demanding. It's demanding being aware. So you're just giving everything a few moments off, just to absorb and to settle. And of course, we've got experience happening. So of course you're going to have, if you've got a dominant thought process, that's going to be there. But you're just, it's a bit like you're putting the car in neutral. So if you're driving along and you put the car in neutral and it's not trying to go forwards or backwards, it's just being in neutral, idling for a few moments. And we do need that. We do need these times in our lives of doing nothing and, not trying to get anywhere or achieve anything. Yeah. I hope that's helpful. Does that make sense? Good. Okay. And good luck with your situation with your colleague.
So Amy from Berlin is asking, are the beings in your cave bodhisattvas?
Yes, so for those that you don't, those of you who are new to this sort of thing, bodhisattvas in the Buddhist tradition are, what are they? They're archetypal beings. So they're kind of beings of light, who are very often full of qualities, full of wonderful qualities. Yeah, I think there probably are. I mean, again, I'm trying not to sort of pin it down, but they have that quality. They're so deeply, deeply loving. Yeah, and certainly one of them is an archetypal bodhisattva, because when you get ordained in our tradition, you get given one of these figures to meditate on and sort of cultivate their qualities and receive their qualities. And the figure that I meditate on is Amitabha, who is the being of love. He's the big red being of love. So he's always there. But these other beings, I'm not really sure who they are. They're quite human. Definitely practitioners, definitely very, very wise and very, very loving. And very real, very, very real. I mean, as real as all of you, which is wonderful. or you are as real as them, which is also wonderful. Yeah, so you could probably call them bodhisattvas. Yeah. And also, I'm just seeing here, Maitrikara's said something really great about the just sitting. It's like watching the credits roll at the end of a film, which I have been absorbed in, not reading them, just seeing and being aware and sitting with the feeling. I think that's great, because we all know what that feels like. You've watched a film, been very absorbed, and then the credits come on. You don't really want to move, quite nice music maybe, and you just sit there, but you're not really reading the credits, unless you're a filmmaker, in which case you might be interested in who did what. But generally speaking, we don't really read the credits, but you're still there in the experience of watching the movie. So that's a really very good analogy. Thank you so much, Maitrikara. Yeah, so does anyone else have anything you want to share, or anything you noticed in the practice?
So Gary in the chat has said, I noticed that when I opened to all in the practice, I became aware that not only was I sending my kindness out, there were 99 others sending me kindness, and I opened to allow that kindness wash over me. That hadn't really occurred to me before, he says.
That is brilliant, Gary. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, that's a lovely way of seeing it, because as I said yesterday, I think one of the deepest longings in humans is not only to be loved, but also to love. Expressing, giving kindness and love to others. It's very important to us, I think, as humans. And so when we're doing a practice like this, where we're all collectively allowing kindness to flow out, receiving it from everyone else, because they are also having this positive experience of allowing it to flow out with an open heart, or working with whatever they've got going on, but this longing to share this experience of kindness. And it's a great thing to receive that. Let it all just wash over you. Brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah. Because receiving kindness from others is also a gift to them, of course. We all know what it's like when we try to offer kindness and it falls on barren ground, as it were. So learning how to receive is also very, very important. That's very beautiful. Thank you, Gary. I don't think I've ever sort of articulated in that way before, so that's really helpful.
So Lucy is saying, sometimes I get imaginative images during the meditation and can get a bit stuck in trying to think about what they might mean. Do you think there's any value in thinking about meaning, or should I let them just come?
Yeah, again, fantastic. Thank you, Lucy. Well, again, there's a lot of awareness in what you've just said. So, you're aware that there's imagination engaged. Secondly, you know that you can get stuck in trying to figure out what they mean. And thirdly, you've got this great question, is there value in that, or should you just let them come and go? So I would encourage you just to explore that yourself. Play around with what's it like for you when you look for meaning. Play around with what it's like when you don't do that. You just let them come and go. And I think maybe it's a kind of both and situation. Sometimes looking for meaning can be helpful, because the imagination is delivering some kind of message from something much deeper in yourself. So that might be helpful. But it can also get in the way sometimes if we go too analytical, because the imagination is not an analytical part of ourselves. It's to go back to the Ian McGilchrist work from the first month of this project, and the left and the right brain. Obviously, and analysis is the left brain, and imagination is much more right brain. So it can be very interesting to just listen, let the messages emerge in a non-conceptual way. But then, as I say, sometimes it's really helpful to think, oh, why is that happening? What's that telling me? And then to do some reflection. So I think it's not an either or situation. But if you notice you're getting too heady and too tight and too analytical, then just drop that. And if you notice it's all a bit sort of wishy-washy and vague, you could bring a bit more reflection in. So it's just a case of experimentation and playing. And what was right yesterday may well not be right today. So in Zen Buddhism, there's this wonderful expression of beginner's mind. I think the saying goes something like, in the beginner's mind, the possibilities are many. In the expert's mind, they are few. Because a beginner is just open to whatever arises because they've never had that experience before. But when we become expert, we can shut down new possibilities because we think we know what we're doing, or we think we know what should be happening. Good. So Vidyakaya.
Yes, thank you. I looked up that Iris Murdoch quote yesterday. It's something I've quoted quite often, but I've always got it wrong. But I got the gist, but you got it very accurately. And then I just found this really beautiful article on a thing called the Marginalian or something.
Oh, yeah. That's a wonderful website.
Oh, you know it? Okay. Yeah, it's brilliant. And she was, I don't know, the gist of the article was that love is actually recognizing our differences and how hard it is to understand one another. I mean, I just found it so helpful. So I just want to say thank you for stimulating me to go there. Yeah.
So say that again. Love is recognizing our differences and how hard.
It's not about just sort of merging and, oh, we're all the same, it's all lovely. It's no, actually, we're all bloody difficult to understand. And contradictory and confusing, and deal with it and open. And it's relating to other people can be really painful. And love is just opening to that and staying with it. Yeah,
that's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think the danger with some of these the sort of non-dual approaches is we think it's all just a big lovely soup. You know, we're all just sort of swimming around in a big lovely soup. But that's why I like that image of the two bodies of water, because actually they're different. You know, one is white and one is blue. They're different. They're not the same.
Yeah.
But they're all made up of the same flow. And if you try to find that definite edge, you'll never find it. But yeah, love is well, again, in Buddhism, you know, you've got these different wisdoms. You've got the wisdom of equality, which is seeing that we're all deep down equal. We're all equally full of flow, to put it that way. And then you've also got what's called the discriminating wisdom, which is seeing the way that essential commonality expresses itself uniquely. We all express that differently in our lives. And people can be really difficult, and we can get into all kinds of conflicts. Well, I shouldn't say people are difficult. People are people, but one's responses to people can be difficult.
Relationships can be difficult.
Yeah. And that's why we need a lot of patience and a lot of lightness and kindness. So thank you. So Nick's put in the marginalian. So this is a woman, I can't remember her name. She lives in New York. I think she might be Greek or something like that. And you sign up to her newsletter, and like a couple of times a week, they are kind of messages from the beyond. And she just finds lots and lots of quotes and authors and poets and so on to evoke this world of wonder and mystery and beauty and so on. So it's a good thing to sign up to if you would like to.
I can put the link to that article in the chat if you're
okay. That would be brilliant if you could do that.
Okay, brilliant.
Cool. I've just posted that actually.
So you found it? Wow, you are on it.
Oh, you have. Very good.
Yes.
Well,
good. We all need a Nick in our lives, that's for sure.
Yes.
Can you come home with me, Nick? Okay, look, let's leave it there. That's a very good note to end on, to thank Nick very, very much for his very quiet, calm, attentive presence all week. And he's getting on a train today or driving today up to Adhisthana to do the tech for another event tonight. So he doesn't have much rest. and he's moved house this week. Amazing. So thank you so much, Nick. Yeah, and thank you all very, very much for coming. And you'll be able to look back at any sessions you found particularly helpful on YouTube. I think they're on the website, or they will be on the website, won't they, Nick? The Nature of Mind website. Yeah, but yeah, it's been wonderful. So go well, everybody, and embrace the mystery, embrace the awe of being alive. And that's it, really. Let's all go and have some breakfast or go to bed or do whatever we're going to do now. And yeah, thank you again. If you want to unmute and say goodbye, then that's always nice.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a
Thank
great
you.
week.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank
Vidyamala. That was
you.
absolutely
Bye-bye.
wonderful, so beneficial. Thank you so much. Bye.
And it's been great seeing all these faces for the whole week. Really enjoyable.
Thank you.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Vidyamala.